If the Expanse was a tactical space game, then it would probably be very much like Nebulous Fleet Command. Nebulous easily features the most intricate space battles that I've seen in any game. Whilst officially it doesn't have anything to do with the Expanse, it's very clear to see where the inspiration has come from the way the ships move, to their designs, to the specifics of combat itself. Nebulous Fleet Command then arrived into early access on Steam on the 11th of February 2022. It currently sits with very positive reviews, and after spending some time with it, it's very easy to see why. Now, later this week, the game's first major update will be released. It's called Modular Missiles, and will significantly overhaul the missiles aspect of the game. In fact, at the end of this video, you can see an exclusive trailer for the new update, so do stick around for that. Now, before we go into more details about the update, let's talk about the game itself. Here's some words from the developers on what exactly they wanted the game to be. So, they say Nebulous Fleet Command is a tactical space game where the player controls a small task group of between 1 and 10 ships in an intricately simulated and fully 3D space battle involving kinetic and beam weapons, missiles, sensors, and electronic warfare. It has an extremely detailed damage model with per pixel armor damage representation and dozens of components making up each ship. There are no health bars in Nebulous, all damage is entirely positional, and you'll watch your ships literally pull apart at the seams as the direction and type of damage starts to wear down individual systems. There is no unit construction during battle, making all of the units and even the individual missiles you begin with incredibly precious and irreplaceable. Careful planning, foresight, and intelligence gathering is key to victory. The game currently features single-player versus AI, as well as team-based multiplayer skirmish battles. So that's a pretty extensive overview, but it's very accurate as well. Now, like I said at the start of the video, I've spent some time with Nebulous over the weekend, and so far I've been very impressed. Now, do keep in mind that this is not from a AAA studio, so don't expect the graphics to be up to AAA standards. However, they are very good for what they are and very well represent the game. Now, in terms of the gameplay, this has been a very challenging experience, and that in a good way. It's not at all the typical RTS experience, but rather very slow and methodical and extremely challenging as well. Currently, we're watching the gameplay from the tactical view. You can switch between the tactical world map and the regular view. You can switch between these as and when you want simply by pressing the spacebar, and in fact it's actually well worth switching between these as they give you different classes and different types of information. How you actually go about playing this will depend on the type of scenario you use. There's a variety of different skirmish modes: annihilation, capture the flag, center flag, control, station capture, and a tug of war. Each of these can have a time limit set or just set no limit, as well as some of the game modes have victory point conditions as well. Although that said, I personally enjoyed Annihilation the most, just simply destroy everything the enemy has. Now, you've got two teams, your own team and the enemy team. You can set these up to have different sets of fleets. You've got multiple options right here. And you can do the same for Team 2, which is the CPU enemy controlled team. Now, when it comes to combat itself, things get pretty interesting. Whilst in many RTS games you might be used to having a multitude of units, in this game in Nebulous you can have just a few. In this particular case, there's just 3 ships in use. But this doesn't make things any easier. In fact, perhaps it makes things far more complicated. Right here, you can see that the attack ship has taken up a lateral motion, moving sideways, coming out from the asteroid so that it can target the enemy ship. Meanwhile, you can see the enemy's PDC was attempting to take out the missile there, and unfortunately for them at least, failed to do that. And as mentioned early on, ships do not have health bars in Nebulous, and that means you can't easily and instantly see what the status is of enemy weapons or enemy ships. You really have to rely on their appearance and how they're behaving. Now right here you can see how ships are being target jammed. That's why we're getting so many contacts here spread about the place, making things very tricky. In fact, we can't easily track down any enemies here. Now, to try and get around this, we can use a radar burst. This will, hopefully at least, allow us to target one of the hostile ships. You can see up on the top right there, the purple icon. That is one of the targets that they're trying to take on here. But things aren't going perfectly. Just going to pause the video here. So this is the ship's damage panel. We can see all the modules that are installed on the ship. They're represented by different blocks across the ship itself. These at different points have been targeted and damaged. We can also see down the bottom there that some of these areas are on fire. Now the blue circles are moving across the screen. These are the damage control teams. These will attempt to get around the ship and repair the various different areas and the various different modules. They will of course prioritise fires because fires inside a spaceship are very, very dangerous. But you can of course have some influence how these all play out, how the damage control teams actually work. You can set some priority here and try and get them to prioritise certain areas of the ship. Now it's best not to interfere too much or keep prioritising one area and then another, as of course the damage control teams have to then move from one area of the ship to the next, and this costs valuable time. So yeah, damage control and ship management is very, very important. Another thing that's important is how you present your ship to the enemy. And this very much comes down to the ship's orientation and what side of the ship you're presenting. Simply put, the port and starboard of your ships can contain thick armor plates. They also can contain some radar panels. Meanwhile, the stern and the bow of the ship present smaller targets. They also, if you're heading towards an enemy, can present a smaller target for the radar. This can reduce your signature, making it much harder for the enemy to see you. But it has the risk of presenting the engine to the enemy. Your ship's position and orientation will also affect the capabilities of the ship's weapons. For example, if your ship is positioned in such a way to make it difficult for the turrets to target the enemy, then it will be far harder for the weapons fire to hit. One way around this is to have your ship orbit a target, but this comes with many risks as well. And a whole load of weapons fire coming in right there, just look at that. Now one thing you'll notice is how certain weapons fire can punch through the hull. Once this weapons fire gets through the hull or through the armour, it's very likely or very possible that it will hit a module and do further damage. Of course, it's also possible that the weapons fire will hit a damage control team, in which case it will kill them, reducing your abilities or capabilities to repair your ship. Electronics warfare is also a major focus of the game, although to be honest with you, I haven't had much time to actually get into that side of things just yet. Quite a difficult game, quite a complex game to pick up and learn, but very, very interesting. And yeah, a lot of fun as well. Now I also want to briefly, as I said early on in the video, talk about the Modular Missiles update. And for this, we'll again look at the words that the developers have sent over here. So Nebulous, they say Nebulous already featured one of the most detailed representations of missile warfare in any video game. And this update brings even more depth and complexity to make it truly stand alone. Unlike most other games where missiles are an infinite resource and just serve to add variety to damage types, in Nebulous missiles are limited and every one is a potential ship killer, and a single hit is certainly to be feared. As the name suggests, instead of using the existing set of 6 developer-designed missiles, players will now be able to mix and match a set of 5 missile bodies, with 3 warheads, 2 guidance modules, 8 seeker types, 6 support modules, and a configuration of engine system to tailor their missiles to match individual needs. Players can configure the various seekers for specific targets, design them to reject electronic warfare decoys, or customize the approach angle to the target. Cruise guidance allows players to send their missiles on 3D waypoint paths around asteroids in order to strike the enemy from behind. Different types of warheads with configurable size versus the engine's fuel can deal devastating damage in different ways. Support modules can be used to help penetrate point defences, such as by launching decoys on terminal approach to turn 5 missiles into 15 and overwhelm point defences. So yeah, as you can tell, a pretty complex scenario there, and hopefully that's going to work as good as the developers describe. The update is coming out on the 20th of August. So from what I've seen here, Nebulous Fleet Command is a very interesting take on the RTS genre. If you want to find out more, do check out the links in the video description where you can find out everything you need to know. Meanwhile, do stick around for that Modular Missiles trailer.